Growing up in the mountains of Colorado, unsurprisingly, I didn't have a lot of connection to the ocean. Don't get me wrong, the mountains are beautiful, but eventually, the sea cast its siren song, and from the moment I donned a mask and began exploring the marine world, I was captivated. But of course, there was one big problem. The source of my new fascination was quite far away. Sure, I could wax poetic about how the cycle of the rains and the mountain rivers that I hiked along were always connected to the seas, but the reality is I just simply didn't have access. But I did have something else. I had games. Every day, coming home from school, I had miraculous underwater worlds waiting for me, just a button press, a dice roll, or a keystroke away. Incredible art and engaging gameplay let me explore fantastical underwater worlds set to inspiring musical scores and mysterious ambient sounds. Through the lens of gaming, I wasn't just able to see the underwater world from so far away. I was able to experience it, to interact, and to learn. And the remarkable thing was, I didn't walk away from these experiences with just an entertained smile. I walked away with new knowledge of the depth of biodiversity in the oceans and how all of these animals interact. And through the stories that these games were able to tell, I walked away myself inspired to act. There is a problem, though. Even as I grew and branched out into the wider array of forms that gaming can take, I found that oftentimes doing something as complicated as saving the oceans was as simple as using mystical powers to restore a coral reef or defeating a single villain. Now, these sorts of stories are wonderful, but in the real world, things are much more complicated than that. Conserving our oceans involves individual action, market solutions, and laws and policies that are all guided by science. Every one of these topics is incredibly complicated and difficult to understand on its own, kind of like a strangely shaped jigsaw puzzle piece. We all want to solve the puzzle that is protecting the oceans, but opaque policy processes and complicated economic jargon terms make the pieces very strange and hard to comprehend, which makes feeling apathetic natural. But we can't do that if we want to form lasting conservation solutions. The only thing that's going to work on a broad scale is finding out how these ill-fitting pieces can act in concert with one another. If we understand what these pieces are, that is to say, we demystify the workings of policy and we clarify the connections between economics, science, and law, we can get closer to solving the puzzle and truly achieving those lasting conservation solutions. And I believe in the power of games to do this. Gamification is defined as the application of game elements, like points, levels, challenges, and rewards, to non-game contexts in order to engage, educate, and motivate. Gamification has already proven useful in a wide range of applications, like language learning, diet, and exercise. So my project, 8 Oceans, strives to gamify these complicated policy and economic topics as a 4 to 6 player cooperative board game that you can play with your friends. This game takes real-world elements and gamifies them. Complicated policy processes become fully illustrated playing cards. Market resources transform into uniquely shaped tokens, and conservation objectives become points. I want to take that deep personal connection that I felt to games growing up and use that to convey a more nuanced view of ocean conservation. Now, taking on the role of a game designer isn't, if you'll pardon the expression, all fun and games. Even to get to the prototype version of the game that I have today, I needed to learn science communication, ocean law and policy, environmental economics, listening skills, graphic design, AI art generation, technical writing, and even a little bit of computer coding. But that entire journey began just by putting pen to paper. Using the knowledge of previous games that I've played, I tried to wrangle a ton of thoughts in my head about what I wanted this game to be into solid form. So my first few design iterations were entirely hand-drawn and printed, using kind of whatever I could get my hands on as game pieces, recycled game pieces from other games, blank dice, even like nearby lighters and my wireless earbuds served me pretty well during that time. Eventually, though, I had to take all of the ideas out of the design lab in my head and put them in front of other people. After all, the eventual idea is to make a game that you can play with your friends, so the most important step in this process is the playtesting. Playtesting involves putting the game in front of other players and really, really listening to what it is they have to say. Seeing what parts of the game that people connect with, which parts of the game don't make sense, and which parts were fun. Simply put, I needed other humans to tell me what was good and what was bad, and thankfully I had many wonderful and willing participants in this process. So to those of you who helped me playtest this project, thank you so, so much. With each one of your playtests, I channeled all of your feedback into a new iteration of the game each and every time. The process of quickly revising, though, did present its own unique challenges. Many things in the game I chose to represent as playing cards, and manually revising each and every one of those playing cards each time was a little bit difficult. And when I first started, I was like manually typing and drawing and going through and editing, and that was not the most efficient. So I do want to highlight a cool game design tool that I found that I used to solve this conundrum, mostly because I think it's really, really cool. I found this program called Nandeck, which is able to read a spreadsheet and format each line into a playing card super quickly. So if I had to make a change to all of the cards, I could just make one edit and the program would kind of do the rest for me. But making it work meant that I needed to understand how to tell it what to do in its own language. And thankfully, I'm not scared of a little bit of computer coding. With some past experience and a few YouTube tutorials, if I'm being honest, I was in business. After the code was written, it just took a single click of a button to turn all of it into next playing cards for the next round of play testing. And this was important because it let me spend less time worrying about the manual editing of these cards and more time really worrying about what those cards represent. Because every piece of artwork, every flavor text, every effect of the card on the game is a passive learning opportunity that helps me towards my overall goal. So being able to change them easily is critical. And because art and presentation of a game are incredibly important factors in how well a game is received, the final steps of this project involved using the AI art generation tool Midjourney to help me turn word prompts into this beautiful, detailed artwork. I then used Adobe Photoshop to create the game's boards, characters, resource tokens, and more. And with all of that in place, I uploaded and proofed all of these things through a game manufacturer called the Game Crafter in order to breathe life into this vision. So today, I am very, very proud to say that 8 Oceans is real. These complicated policy topics that I spent the last year learning about now have a vector to be communicated within an hour and a half's worth of fun and interactive play. And on the table, it looks a little something like this. After laying out the game's boards, tokens, and cards, 8 Oceans immediately puts you in charge of ocean conservation in a fictional world that mirrors our own. The game's nation is rapidly industrializing, with growth fueled by resources from the sea. These resources, like seafood and oil, are harvested from the game's 8 ocean zones every turn in order to meet the nation's needs. However, these extractions damage point scores that represent the ocean's health. Your overarching goal in the game is to keep these ocean health point scores from reaching 0 through 9 rounds of play. You'll have to keep an eye on the expenditure of fossil fuels as well, as every fossil energy token that is used increases global emissions and inches you closer towards a loss. To accomplish this goal, players will take on the role of an ocean conservationist. You will all work together with your fellow players towards your conservation goals. You either win the game together or you lose the game together. One of your most powerful tools in the game comes from enacting or opposing policy cards. Each fully illustrated card gamifies a real-world policy related to ocean health. In this example, the lease of an area for offshore wind turbines is up for debate. If passed, the card will be enacted on the board, slightly damaging the ocean's biodiversity score, but providing a way for players to gather clean energy and prevent the buildup of that global emissions meter. Many of the game's policy cards have a trade-off like this, encouraging critical thought of which policies will be best to accomplish your goals. And policy is not the only moving piece, in the real world or in the game. On each player's turn, resources, like the fish tokens pictured, will be harvested from the oceans automatically and placed in a market. If left there, other citizens will turn them into new products and services through advancement cards, which will help society move forward. If left unchecked, though, this process could mean overharvested and empty oceans. Luckily, market resources can also be bought or sold through individual player projects that can negate or restore these damages. Figuring out the right balance is essential. Overall, 8 Oceans challenges players to think carefully about how to spend time and resources to achieve a sustainable balance. Through passive learning and fun interaction with the game, topics like sustainable fisheries management, green energy, deep sea mining, and more can be explored. From today, I want to take this vision beyond this prototype box and to the world at large. I will keep examining and playtesting this game further and eventually pitch it to a board game publisher that can bring it to market. By bringing these topics to an audience of gamers, both new and seasoned, I will bring the power of games to work for the ocean that I care so deeply about. I'll wrap up by giving a huge thank you to my Capstone Advisory Committee, Dr. Galen Cecile, who met with me every week and even playtested one of the versions of the game, Joel Bodkin, who was never afraid to sit down and nerd out with me about love of design and board games in general, and of course our very own Samantha Murray, who has taught me so much in this program and provided many needed sanity checks about how I represented things within the game. And of course, a big shout out to my MASNBC cohort, and one last shout out to all of my playtesters. This monumental work could not have been done without all of you. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. You helped bring 8 Oceans to life. And any questions? I do, yes.
Hey, Dane.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
I'm wondering, there seemed to be an assumption that the players actually care about the ocean. Could somebody game the game by saying, I don't care about future generations, I'm just going to extract everything and just screw the ocean, and other players wouldn't be able to necessarily offset that?
It's actually really interesting that you bring this up, because it's been brought up a lot in the play test and kind of what slant the game should take. A lot of early prototypes actually didn't say that you took on the role of like an ocean conservationist and just kind of let you experiment with the board. And I was finding that a lot of times people would do exactly what you were saying. They would just extract resources and go for, their personal project points, which did, lead to a loss. And there's some value in that, right? You give it to the people, and they say, oh, well, if I do this, then I go to a loss. But if I enact policies that help conserve the ocean, then that's, win. That's some passive learning there. But being honest with you, it's something I'm still playing with in terms of how to slant it. So we'll see how it ends up in the final.
Thanks, Dane. That was really great.
Thank you.
I'm wondering what age group you're thinking about, and are you going to try and market it in an educational setting? Because this could be amazing, like with high schools in particular, where they're starting to discuss the options, but you also want them to have the solutions to work with too. So I'm just wondering what age group you thought.
Correct. No, that's a great question. And I think high school and up, high school to any age of adult is what I was intending for this game. Because I think you're right. That age where you're really starting to learn about things is very critical. I will be honest, right now the game rule set as it stands is fairly complicated. So there's a lot of work to do to hopefully simplify it down and maybe even expand the age range that can understand it. But yeah, I would love to use it as an educational tool.
Hey, Dane. That was amazing.
Hey, thank you.
Have you thought about doing this in a context where you have a special audience that's invited, including policymakers or other people from the community, and doing it in like a game cafe type of setting, and so use it as an opportunity to bring communities together as a community engagement kind of device, so that we can get the policymakers talking with whatever community members we would like them to interact with, that kind of thing. So I'm just seeing all kinds of potential opportunities for that kind of thing, which is awesome.
I mean, to be honest with you, no, but that is a fantastic idea, and I would love to do that, and I would be just so proud if I could pull something like that off.
Yeah, and I've actually been thinking about using it for a special audience in my ocean law and policy class, and requiring them to play it as well. We have a question, though, in the on the YouTube comments about the artwork. Who did the artwork?
So, I've been joking around and saying that it was me. I did the artwork, but that is false. I used a AI art generation tool, which basically you can type in something like a beautiful coral reef, lots of fish, purples and blues, and it will basically generate 4 different options of images for you that you can try to fully refine and whatnot. So for all of the cards, I basically had to find a text prompt of what I was trying to get that card to convey and do a lot of generate an image for me. No, that doesn't work. Yes, that does work. And then saving and trying to do the graphic design process from there. It's a really cool tool, absolutely wild. But if I do take this to market, I will hopefully find artists that I can contract to do the artwork as well.